The craziest thing about secretly wealthy people is they don't look like the Monopoly man, and they're usually not dressed head to toe in designer outfits. My dad retired early to become a full-time stay-at-home parent, but growing up, I genuinely didn't feel like we were rich. I went to public schools, we never took holidays, and he drove this really old car from the 80s that was so embarrassing. I used to get him to drop me off a couple of streets away from school so I could walk myself. I used to be embarrassed and I always used to want what all the other kids had. But now looking back, I realized that we were rich in ways that I didn't appreciate at the time. While I didn't feel like we were rich, I never felt like we were broke or struggling either. And now that I'm older, I've realized how important it is to live below your means and to not get trapped in lifestyle inflation. So today I'm going to share the signs that someone's secretly wealthy. I'll share the stories that really made it click for me. I'll share stories about my dad and my mom and one of my aunties who's done really well for herself. And also the big trap that some people get into that make them look rich but end up broke. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Queenie and I'm here to help you make your money go further. My whole goal is to help you build wealth while still enjoying your life at the same time. I have a license to give general financial advice, but keep in mind that anything that we talk about in this video is general advice only and not personal financial advice. You can read my full financial services guide in the description. This video is sponsored by Pearler, which is the investing app that I use, but I'll talk more about them later in this video. So the first sign is that they live a normal life on purpose and they don't let lifestyle inflation eat them alive. Secretly wealthy people have a good enough everything: a good enough car, good enough clothes, a good enough phone, and a good enough house. Not because they can't afford to spend more, but because they prefer to spend their money on things that actually make them happy, not on stuff to impress people. My dad was the absolute king of this. Even though we could afford to buy a more expensive car or live in a more fancy house, he just preferred to keep our lifestyle quite simple. And especially since he wasn't working, he didn't have a lot of money coming in, so having a higher lifestyle just would have stressed us all out a lot more. And it would have caused a lot more stress than it was worth. Even Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world, still lives in the same house that he bought back in 1958 for $31,500. And he drives a normal car. And I feel like when you're young and you're making good money for your age, it can be really easy to feel like you need to spend all of that money and also to feel like you're going to keep on earning money like that forever. This is a huge trap that athletes and influencers fall into. A lot of athletes and influencers make heaps of money when they're young, but because they don't have that financial literacy and nobody's telling them to live below their means and to start investing early, a lot of them actually spend most of their money, and when they're older, they don't have any investments, and they're also making less money because their sponsorships slow down and their career slows down. So that's why it's really important to make sure that we are living below our means and investing and saving regularly, and to not keep on upgrading our lifestyle as we keep on earning more money. But at the same time, I feel like it is okay to slowly upgrade your lifestyle as you do start to earn more money and hit those new net worth milestones, but as long as you are keeping your finances in check along the way too. And the second sign is they're not scared to talk about money. This one is pretty underrated but absolutely crucial. Secretly wealthy people have normal and calm conversations about money. They don't feel weird or secretive about it, and they don't feel awkward about it. My auntie, who's done really well for herself, is someone that comes to mind. Whenever I see her, she's happy to talk about her investments, what things actually cost if she's renovating a room in her house, and how she chooses to allocate her money. She's not saying it in a braggy, look at me kind of way. She's saying it more in a factual kind of way, just like how someone would talk about the weather. She's just talking about how money works, and it's useful and it's practical, and it also helps give me ideas about the things that I could be investing in and the things that I could be doing with my money as well. And there's actually research on this to back this up. A study from Charles Schwab found that families who talk openly about money raise kids who are significantly more financially confident and responsible as adults. And get this, 59% of Australians say money is still the most difficult topic to discuss with family and friends. More awkward than politics, even more uncomfortable than relationship problems. And that's pretty crazy when you think about it. According to research from Finder, 1 in 3 Aussies have no idea how much their partner earns. 1 in 3 people. These people are sharing a life together, maybe they're looking to buy a home together, or they already have a home together, maybe they're even raising kids together and they don't know what their partner earns. That's pretty crazy to me. And I feel like a lot of it comes down to a lot of this shame shame and stigma that we have around money. Sometimes we might equate our worth as a person to our net worth, or our worth as a person to our income, when that's totally not the case. We all have value as human beings, regardless of how much we earn and what our net worth is. And I think it's really important to remember this, especially when we are talking about money with our friends and family. There's a really nice analogy that really summarizes this perfectly. Let's say you're at the supermarket and you see a bottle of water and it costs $1. Now let's take that exact same bottle of water and we place it in the airport. Suddenly that bottle of water is $5. And let's say we place that same one bottle of water at a music festival. It's now $10 there. And it really goes to show you that it's the exact same bottle of water, but just put in different situations, it can be worth drastically different prices. And the same goes for our income as well. You can be the exact same person, but if you're working in a different industry or a different job, you can earn more money. So just keep it in mind that your value as a human being isn't dictated by how much you earn or what your net worth is. And it's totally okay to talk about money, because the more we talk about money with our friends and family, the more that we can all help each other build wealth. Because if you never talk about money, you'll probably never build wealth. Let's say you're trying to learn a language by never speaking that language, or trying to learn to cook by never cooking. Money works the exact same way. The more we talk about it, the more we learn different perspectives, different ideas on managing our money, and we learn how to get better with our finances. A study published in the Journal of Financial Therapy found that couples who have regular financial conversations have significantly lower stress levels and better financial outcomes than those who avoid money talk. And secretly wealthy people really understand this. They've really normalized money conversations. So the next sign is they make decisions on value rather than price. I'm not gonna lie, this one took me a really long time to learn myself, because I used to be completely backwards on this and then I flipped the other way, and now I feel like I've got a good grasp on it. Touch wood. At first, when I was younger, I always used to buy the cheapest quality everything. If I was looking at 2 t-shirts to buy and one was $10 and one was $20, I would always go for the $10 t-shirt because it just seems like better value, right? But then I got older and I realized there was another way to look at it, and I started to buy things more on a cost per wear basis instead. If I was looking to buy something, so let's say for example, I'm looking to buy a new jacket and one of the jackets is $50 and the other jacket is $200, instead of just looking at the price tag of those 2 items and going with the $50 jacket, I would instead think about the longer term cost per wear. Because if the cheaper jacket is made from cheaper quality materials, it doesn't have as good workmanship, or it's in a color or style that I potentially won't wear a lot, then in those cases, it might actually be better value to go with a more expensive option if it's in a style and color that I like, if it has good craftsmanship, and if it's made of better and more durable materials. So then I started to think more about longer term costs per wear and really evaluating things not just based on their price, but also on their longer term value. But then something changed again and I realized there was something that I was missing. I used to think more expensive items generally means better quality, but that's not always the case. I recently watched a video from Tanner Leatherstein, who's another creator, and he was comparing Coach bags to Louis Vuitton bags. He broke down the materials that were used in both, the leather, the craftsmanship, and everything. And what he found was the quality was pretty similar between these 2 bags, except one of the bags cost 10 times more than the other bag. And that's when it really clicked for me. Past a certain point, you're not really paying for better quality, you're more so just paying for the logo. So you're not paying for the item itself, you're paying for the brand, you're paying for the logo, and you're paying for that perceived status that you get when you're wearing that bag. And this is something that I've noticed in my own life as well. I have purchased a few designer items, and I have really realized this in my own life. Last year I went to Paris and they had this really amazing, beautiful designer outlet there, and I wanted to buy an everyday bag that I could wear with anything. I ended up finding a really beautiful bag at Prada. It was around 50% off, so I thought I was getting a really good deal. But the price of the bag was still really expensive at $1,800. On that same trip, I wanted to buy a bag for my mum as well, and I found this really beautiful store called Polen. This is not sponsored, by the way, but they have these really beautiful bags, and all the French girls are wearing them. I ended up buying her this really beautiful bag for $600, and honestly, the craftsmanship, the quality, it was really similar to the bag that I bought for $1,800. And I realized even though the bag that I bought was really beautiful, I got it for a good price and definitely is quite durable, I still feel like the Polen bag would have been way better value, and I do kind of regret my purchase. So I think it's always important to think about cost per wear, but also keep in mind that past a certain point, you might only be paying for the brand, not really a better quality item. And that's the shift that the secretly wealthy people make. Instead of asking, how much does this cost, and always choosing the cheapest option, or always choosing the most expensive option, they try to determine what the value is of an item. Secretly wealthy people aren't afraid to spend money, but they're really good at knowing what to spend money on. They'll happily pay for quality and convenience that will give them their time back, for education that will compound, and for experiences that really matter. The next sign is that they have assets that can grow while they sleep. And this is the big one. A lot of people think that the way to be responsible with money is to hoard a bunch of cash and then just stuff it under your mattress. But doing this isn't the smartest idea, because each year our money loses money because of inflation. The target inflation rate is about 2% per year. So each year our money is effectively losing about 2% of its buying power. So instead of keeping all of their money in cash, what they do is they invest it. They still set aside some money in case of emergencies. About 3 to 6 months of living expenses is a good idea, but anything over this amount, they invest it instead. So let's compare saving versus investing. Let's say, for example, you save $1,000 per month in a bank account which earns a 4% interest rate. After 30 years, you'd have $694,000, which sounds pretty good, right? Now let's compare investing that $1,000 per month instead. With an average annual return of 8%, that $1,000 per month investment turns into $1.49 million. So it's basically double the saving example. And that's why it's so important to start investing as early as possible. And here's the thing that most people miss. You don't need to be rich to start investing. You need to start investing to become rich. And that's why every month I set aside 20% of my pay, and it's automatically invested without me even having to think about it. The platform that I use to invest is Pearler, and they're also the sponsor of today's video. And if you have the skills to buy something on your phone, then you have the skills to make an investment, and I'll show you just how easy it is. So I just go here, ASX Invest. Here I can search for the ETF that I would like to buy, for example, VESG. To buy it, I simply click buy. I can put in how much I would like to invest, for example, $1,000. And to buy it, I simply click on next and then confirm. And if you're not quite sure which ETFs to invest in, here's a really helpful infographic from the creator Tash Invest that lists the 10 most popular ETFs with Pearler. The first one is VAS, VGS, IVV, VDHG, A200, NDQ, and more. So here are some of the most popular ETFs so you can start your research. And if you want to try it out for yourself, you can use my code Queenie for a $20 credit. And the next sign is that they value freedom and experiences over proving something. They'll happily spend on experiences that matter to them, like travel, spending time with their family, their health, learnings, maybe a hobby, but they hate spending money on things to impress strangers. This is one thing that I feel like my dad could have spent more money on. Growing up, I really did admire how my dad was very frugal, and he really didn't spend any money to impress people. But I do feel like something that we definitely were missing were creating those really beautiful experiences. You don't need to spend heaps of money to have great experiences, but I do feel like it's important to make an effort to spend time with the people that you love. This is something that I'm trying to do more of with my daughter Gia. We love spending money on trips and travel plans with her, and I'm also trying to do this more with my dad and my mom as well. And the great thing about experiences is they can't break or deteriorate. We have this really nice TV, and our daughter Gia threw a wooden toy at the TV. I didn't realize it at the time because it didn't seem like it hit the TV very hard, but the next day we woke up and had a look at the TV and it was clearly broken. That TV cost us about $2,000, and it just made me realize that spending $2,000 on an experience is way better because experiences don't break. In our own life, Pablo and I have purposely lived in a less expensive area. We haven't bought a very big house, so that way we're able to dedicate more of our money to spending money on experiences and things that bring us joy, while also investing for the future as well. And the sixth sign is they see risk as a two-way door, and they're more afraid of regret than they are of failure. This one is subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. When secretly wealthy people hear the word risk, they don't automatically think failure. They also equally think, but what if it works? Most people only picture the negative outcome. What if I invest and I lose money? What if I start the business and it fails? And while those things can definitely happen and it's important not to shy away from those things, it's also equally important to think about, what if it succeeds? What if you invest and you make money from your investment? What if you start that business and you're able to quit your job? So I think it's important whenever you're weighing up a decision to think about the risks and the downsides, but also equally think, what are the chances that it succeeds? This was basically me a few years ago. 10 years ago, I made my first investment, and the whole time I was thinking, what if I invest this $1,000 and I lose all of it? And every day I was logging into the investment app and I was checking my returns, and I would get so stressed out whenever my money was down $50. But thankfully I did start investing and I trusted the process and I learned a lot of things along the way. Sometimes I did lose money, but I've definitely made a lot more money from my investments than I've lost. And I do feel like those early losses were me educating myself about investments. So now I'm at a stage where investments don't scare me anymore because I've been invested for so long and I've had quite a lot of wins along the way. And the same thing with starting a business. Starting a business used to be scary because I would always think, what if I invest this money in my business and then it fails? And I'm not going to lie and romanticize it. I did start a lot of businesses that failed. I started about 6 or 7 different side hustles and businesses, and they all basically failed and I lost money. But then the next business that I started, which is this YouTube channel and this content creation business, that was the business that actually ended up working. And that enabled me to quit my full-time job and my partner to be able to quit his full-time job. And now we have people working for us and we have a lot of freedom in our life. That never would have happened if I didn't start all of those businesses that failed. And that was the same mindset that I carried through with my budgeting app, Billroo. The first few years were unprofitable, but thankfully we're at a stage now where we're cash flow positive and we're growing, which is really amazing. So the risk is definitely real. So it's important to weigh up the risk and also make sure that you are taking calculated risks so that way you can learn and adjust and keep going. So before we wrap up this video, I want to be really clear on one thing. This video is not about never enjoying your life. While I have talked about my dad and he's been such a big inspiration for me in how to not get trapped in that lifestyle inflation and spending money just to impress other people, I do feel like there are lots of positive things that I have learned from my mum as well, who is basically the opposite to my dad when it comes to money. They had really different perspectives on money, and it was actually the main reason that my parents divorced. My dad is the type of person that will use one tea bag and he'll use it for many cups of tea until the tea bag is basically unusable. But my mum, on the other hand, will use multiple bags of tea to make one teapot. So they're extremely different when it comes to money, but I definitely do see some positives in my mum's perspective as well. She's happy to spend money on things that make life meaningful and fun and enjoyable. And I do feel like those are the things that my dad was lacking. And while my mum wasn't really living below her means and she was kind of more living in the present, she definitely could have adopted a lot of my dad's money saving habits. I do feel like both perspectives are valid because you don't want to be so frugal that you're never really enjoying your life and you're never enjoying the money that you have. But at the same time, you don't want to be somebody that's just spending all of your money, not thinking about the future, and just spending above your means, because that's not good either. So I feel like it's important to really spend money on where your values are. There might be some things that I spoke about in this video that you might be thinking, wow, that is absolutely worth it to spend money on those things. But there might be other things that you might hear about in this video that you're like, wow, that is a complete waste of money. And that's totally valid. We all have our own different money values. We all have our own different things that we love to spend money on. And I think it's important to spend money on the things that truly bring you value and to try and cut out the things that don't really bring you value. In my own life, I don't really eat out very often. We basically only eat at home, and only for very rare special occasions like birthdays or anniversaries do we even go out to eat at a restaurant. But at the same time, we spend quite a lot of money on travel. So all of that money that we could be using to eat out, it all basically goes to our travel budget. Whereas some people love eating out and love trying the latest restaurants, and that's totally valid as well. And write us a comment below with the word good enough in there, just so we know you watched this video all the way through. Thank you. Bye.